What's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again. Thanks for tuning in. So today's video, I wanted to make it a little bit different. Not so much that I'm not talking about chess pieces. I am talking about chess pieces, but part of the reason why I wanted to make this video was kind of alluding to one of my previous videos where I talked a little bit about the idea of like what happens or what would happen in a situation. Let's say you have a nice chess set and one of the pieces end up getting lost or broken. Like, how do you go about? I mean, obviously there is the idea you can just get a brand new chess set, but how do you go about if you wanted to, say, get some replacement pieces? So my recommendation, and I believe I may have also spoken about that earlier in one of the videos, is basically the very first thing that I would probably do. Let's say that you have a really nice set, a piece gets broken, cracked, what have you, lost, dog chewed it up, because I've heard some people say their dog would chew up chess pieces. Either way, the very first thing that I would probably do in that situation is I would end up calling the place where I got the chess set from. So whether it's House of Staunton, Chess House, Chess Empire, what have you, Chess Bazaar, try to contact them one way or another through email or phone and see if you can inquire about a replacement piece for that particular set. It's more likely that the company which you ordered the set would have more of those sets and the possibility of having replacement pieces for those sets. So that would probably be my very first go-to. But in the situation, let's say you do have a chess set, but that chess set is not one of the newer sets, or maybe they're no longer making it. Or perhaps like in a situation where you've inquired like an heirloom set from your grandfather and a couple of the pieces really need to be replaced for one reason or another. How do you go about getting those pieces replaced? At that time, if the chess set's already 40 years old or more, it's not likely you can just contact the manufacturer and say, hey, this particular set from 1940s, can you replace a couple of pawns? That's, sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And so I started looking online, and I ended up finding a couple of places where you might be able to order some replacement pieces, like generic replacement pieces for certain sets. And one of those websites that seemed to have pretty good customer service overall was Chess House. Chess House was the website that I did end up buying that travel chess set, the magnetic travel chess set that you guys have seen in the previous video. But they did have a pretty large section on replacement pieces. Individual replacement pieces that would range somewhere price-wise between like $3 to all the way up to, I've seen almost like $30-$40 for a chess piece. Now you would say $30-$40 for a chess piece, that does sound a little bit on the steep side. Like you could almost end up paying a little bit more and getting an entire chess set. Yeah, but those particular chess pieces would be like queens and kings too, some of them a lot more elaborate chess sets and with a little bit more like expensive wood, larger pieces. Now, even in that particular situation, I would probably think the smartest thing to do is to contact Chess House with an email or a phone call and say, look, this is the particular chess set that I have. Measure your pieces, or do the best to measure your pieces if that particular chess set's not sold anywhere else. If that particular chess set is sold, let's say, on a different website, and you can give Chess House, let's say, a link and say, this is the exact chess set that I have, and I would like to get a replacement rook for it. Obviously, I would probably think they would reply by saying, like, go to them and ask them first. But if that doesn't work out, and if you don't have a link to the site where you purchased the particular chess set, it might be like an antique one. Try to do your best as far as like measuring the pieces and get a good idea as far as like what wood it's been made out of. It's a lot simpler when you're just missing some maybe like boxwood pieces, or if it's like ebonized boxwood. But when you start to get into different wood varieties, and different shades of wood, then it becomes a little bit trickier to get the proper shade. As you will see in a minute, sometimes even pieces that will say like rosewood, golden rosewood, or other types of wood may end up being of different shade depending on the type of stain that they put on there. And because you're ordering a piece separately from an entire chess set, there's a likelihood that when you get that particular piece, even if it's the same wood that is of, your pieces, it might still stand out. And so that's kind of what I did for this video. I went to Chess House, I went to their piece replacement section, and then ended up basically looking through and choosing some pieces just to show you guys, what they look like, and to kind of give you an idea what to expect when you do purchase a replacement piece. One of the very first things that I did notice is that sometimes in a certain color or certain wood, some pieces were not available, such as knights. It seems like knights were like the biggest piece that was sold out among a lot of the sets. So basically, if it's sold out, you just have to wait around until they get more knights. But I did end up ordering some rooks this time around, simply because I felt like rooks might have more bulk to them. They are a little bit wider, let's say, as opposed to bishops, for example. The bishops have a lot more detail, but they don't necessarily give us that ability to gauge like what type of wood it is as much as a rook, because rooks are wider, bigger pieces. So, and rooks are not super expensive, so I ended up getting a couple of different rooks from, with different wood varieties to kind of give you an idea, okay? So let's take a quick look. Okay, the very first rook that you see here is from a 4-inch king collection. This is the ebonized boxwood, a very typical rook, something that we've oftentimes seen, nothing really special. This is not genuine ebony, it's ebonized boxwood. If we look closely, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to capture the little bit of fading on the very top. Like on one of the spokes here, right over here on top, you will notice that it's kind of getting a little thin, and you could see the I think it's right over here. It's kind of getting a little bit thin in this little spot, and so you could kind of tell that it's sort of rubbing off. That is something you would expect with ebonized boxwood over time with use, is that the outside dark layer may end up being rubbed off, especially if you're playing a particular set very often or if it's starting to age. And so the dark will start to turn into, a little bit lighter. That is something that you would expect with ebonized boxwood, not so much with genuine ebony. Okay, this particular rook here ended up costing me $8. Now, a little note before I continue, as far as replacement of individual chess pieces, let's say that, just like in this particular situation, let's say that a rook in your chess set ended up being going missing, broken, what have you, and you're thinking, okay, so my chess set's ebonized boxwood, and I want to replace my rook. And let's say that you were unable to find the original manufacturer, or for whatever reason, you were unable to match exactly the rook in shape and size to the other rook in your set. What do? Well, in that particular situation, I would personally, probably what I would do is perhaps you can order 2 rooks. So that way, the other black rook will not stand out. So if it's, because, most of the time, when it comes to rooks, they're not too different one from the other. So, but if they are a little bit different, you could order the other one. Or if you wanted to completely eliminate any questioning, you could probably order 4 rooks. 2 dark rooks and 2 light rooks. And that way, your set's completely redone, and nobody would ask whether those rooks belong to that particular set. You could do that, but then again, or this is an $8 rook, so 4 rooks would still cost you around $32 plus shipping. So, that's just an option. Here's the second rook that I wanted to show you guys. This one's a little bit smaller than the other rook that I just showed you. Here's the other rook in size. And this one's definitely one of the rooks that would probably belong to a smaller chess set. So this one is not a 4-inch king like the previous one. This one is a 3 5/8 inch king, and it's Anjan wood. See, Anjan wood and some of the other woods, it's not something that we commonly see. Like, I haven't really seen Anjan wood in in any of the chess sets that I've seen on like House of Staunton. Maybe I just wasn't looking, deep enough. But this particular Rook would cost about $10 to replace. That's how much I paid for this one. And one of the things about this Anjan wood is when I was ordering this particular Rook on the website, if you go on the website Chess House and you put into their search part E358ANJ-BR, that's exactly the code that will bring up this particular set. You will notice on the picture that this particular piece is going to be a lot more lighter and a lot more like orange red looking, almost like blood rosewood. So when I looked at the pictures, I thought, wow, okay, so I'm gonna get Anjan wood and it's gonna look kind of red like some of my blood rosewood chess sets. But when I did receive this, and the reason why I'm trying to show this right, I'm sitting in front of the window so that I can kind of give you guys an idea of what these pieces look under natural light. So you can see here, and I'm trying to get the representation as best as I can. This is a dark brown, more so than it doesn't have any real hint of like a reddish hue or anything about it. This is definitely like a darker brown Rook. Okay, so that is another thing that you probably want to double check or get a hold of the company, like even Chess House, and maybe call them or send them an email and say, look, you want to replace one of your chess pieces, and it does look like that the best color as far as any of the woods they have might be Anjan wood. And then just do contact them and say like, it looks like Anjan wood's probably going to be the best as far as color. Do you guys agree or not? Because I would hate for you guys to have to spend a bunch of money and then wait around and end up realizing that it completely doesn't fit well with the rest of your set. So that's just something to keep in mind, okay? So the third Rook that I was able to get is, it's a slightly kind of a medium-sized Rook. I would say it's more on the large size, belonging to a 4-inch king, Staunton style. This is what they'll call, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but this is kicker wood. Cost me about $12 to get this. Kicker wood, actually, this just like Anjan wood, if you look at it closely, and some of you guys might think differently, but this particular wood here looks a lot like maybe golden rosewood or acacia. Okay, you would probably agree with me that it has this sort of a light brown shade to it. And the one thing that I did notice is that when I did go on the website to purchase this online, the shade for this particular wood was a lot more gray. So when I looked at it, I thought, hey, this looks pretty cool. It's got like a really, really gray tint. It's almost like very, very much so gray. But when I got this, it's looking more acacia wood than gray, than what I've anticipated. If you have a chess set from Kickerwood, then you would probably say, yeah, that makes sense. It's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to look like acacia wood. Maybe not. I don't have a chess set with Kickerwood. But if your chess set from Kickerwood looks gray and you get this, you might say, wow, okay, so now I realize that this particular set doesn't look like my set. Just another one of those pieces that where the picture online may or may not necessarily give you a proper representation of what the set's going to look like as far as color. The next little guy right over here, not so big, belonging once again to a smaller chess set. This would be a 3 5/8 inch king chess set. All ultimate style wooden chess pieces. This is genuine ebony. A little bit more expensive, just by a few dollars. This is $13 chess piece. It is, or does feel quite like a little bit more heavy. And that, goes to show you that some of the woods are going to be a little bit more dense than others. So we've seen genuine ebony pieces, both small and large. This one's kind of a little bit smaller. Pretty much nothing unusual about this particular piece. It's a very nicely made, very nicely polished Rook. And it's not super big, but if your chess set doesn't require a very big piece, this would be very much so in line. So that's $13 for this Rook. In general, pawns are going to be somewhere in the range of like what I've seen, about $3 to $7, depending on the wood and the size of the set. And then rooks and bishops usually about the same price. Knights sometimes not, depending on how elaborate the knights are. And then kings and queens belong to a kind of a little bit more expensive category just because they're larger pieces. So if it's $13 rook, I'm gonna probably say the king might be all the way as expensive as like $26 possibly. So just kind of give you guys an idea of the price breakdown. Okay. This a larger rook here is acacia wood. And if you guys see the acacia wood here, it belongs to a 4-inch executive chessman chess set. This particular piece was $8 for a larger piece like this. It's not super heavy, but it's definitely nice and large. So this would be an example of what some of the acacia wood pieces looks like. And I've shown you guys acacia wood before, like the Elite Zagreb chess set that I've shown you guys was acacia. So this would be very similar to that particular wood. It's golden rosewood, acacia wood, very similar tints to it. Just an overall nice looking rook. Here's the difference. Here's acacia wood. Here's kicker wood. I mean, they're not that terribly different. They are very, very much so similar. I mean, maybe the grain's a little bit different if you see. But for the most part, these two pieces, besides the shape and overall, the stain and everything, the way that the wood looks is very much so similar. Very similar. This next one here is a rosewood Alban design chessman. This was a $10 chess rook, and rosewood. Yeah, so this is exactly pretty much the same as far as the shade of it. It looks like a dark brown with almost dark black, but you know, not quite. It's a dark brown piece. Very nice. It's not golden rosewood. It's not blood rosewood. It's just rosewood. So this is the type of piece that you would get if you ordered this particular one. Okay, lastly here is a very much so normal boxwood. This one belonged to a collector 4-inch king piece. It's a boxwood rook, priced at $12. Really nice boxwood with very prominent grain. If you take a closer look, I'm not sure if it's going to be visible under this particular lighting, but it's got a really nice grain to it overall. When it comes to boxwood, I've previously said this to you guys, I'm sure, or I think I said it to you guys, but definitely boxwood is not all same among different chess sets. Here we go. These are all the 7 rooks that I wanted to show you guys. Right over here as far as what they look like size-wise, and there are different shades. I certainly hope that under this natural sunlight, you guys will be able to kind of get an idea as far as how they look, you know, different. Well, there you have it. Those are the replacement pieces that I got. I don't necessarily have any need for these rooks at this time, and probably what they would otherwise do is if I, you know, after this video, I probably put them on the shelf and keep them on the shelf because they're not going to be used to replace any of my chess pieces. They are just going to be sitting there. And so what I wanted to do, and part of the reason why this particular video was going to be a little different, is I wanted to see what we can do with these chess pieces. I do a couple of things with them. You know, I hate to get a bunch of dislikes on this particular video, but so one of the things that I wanted to do, and I've had people comment before, is when I say these particular pieces and this particular set seem very sturdy, or I take the piece and I hit it against the chessboard slightly and say this feels like a sturdy piece. I do agree with some people are saying, hey, why don't you just put your pieces to some kind of a drop test or a stress test? And no, I don't want to take my chess sets and see if I could drop a bunch of pieces and see if they're gonna break or not break. Simply because I'm attached to a lot of my chess sets. I've spent money on them, and if I end up testing some pieces and they break, then the whole chess set ends up being sort of useless. But that's kind of what's different about this video, is that these rooks that I purchased, they don't belong to any particular chess set of mine, and what I wanted to do is do a couple of experiments with them. One of the first experiments I wanted to do is just drop them on a couple of different surfaces and see what we get as far as, what you would expect from dropping a piece. Where do we usually drop a piece from? Well, from a table. How far is a table usually from the ground? Actually, it's around 29 inches. 29 usually, which is not that tall, because when we were buying a kitchen table, or dining table actually, we were looking for, and the standard was about 29 inches off the ground. So drop it from that distance onto a carpet, drop it from that distance onto a harder wood floor, and see how these pieces do. Obviously with rooks, any type of tests we do as far as their durability, you're gonna say, well, they're rooks. They're large, bulky pieces, so they're not likely to break or get damaged, as far as as opposed to a very elaborate knight or a king. You let the king fall, the finial is likely to break off. A rook doesn't have any appendages like that. So but still, I think that it would be fun to take a look and see how these pieces do. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a couple of tests, and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, hopefully you guys will find this video informative as well as interesting, maybe a little entertaining. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then. All right. Okay, so let's just go ahead, and this would be a height of a small table here. It's not that much, but let's just go ahead and test these pieces out, okay? Why don't we just go ahead and maybe lift them and just drop them and see what happens. This is the boxwood. Boxwood's fairly sturdy. Well, there goes the piece. Nothing. No. Sideways. Downwards. Sideways again. Sideways and downwards. Yeah, nothing. Looks great. So, but a carpet's really soft. So, how can you test anything on carpet? Let's test the, this is gonna be the genuine ebony. Ebony falls a lot quicker, it seems like. 3. I'm just kind of throwing in a couple of times. 4. 5. 6. That one hit a wall. Yeah, no scratches, nothing. But once again, carpets tend to be soft overall. Okay, so the very first test that I did on these pieces, I basically dropped them from a height that you would have a regular table at, and they all landed onto a fairly soft carpet. Not the softest carpet out there, but fairly soft, and sometimes the pieces would bounce off and hit the wall. In this particular situation, all the rooks did really exceptionally well. I didn't see any particular differences. Some pieces, some of the heavier, smaller pieces would hit the carpet a little bit more firmly, but I analyzed all the pieces. I didn't see any scratches, no dents, definitely no cracks in any of them. And I dropped them at least 5 times each. So I'd probably say that if you're playing chess in an area where there's a fairly thick carpets, then the possibility of the pieces breaking, at least the rooks, would probably be not so great if they fall onto a carpet. So that's I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe what would happen is some of the weights inside of the pieces would kind of get loose a little bit or start rattling. I didn't notice anything like that, at least from this particular test. So let's move on and see if we can drop them on like a linoleum or a harder surface, maybe like a wood surface, from the same type of distance, and see what we get, whether we're gonna see any dings, whether we're gonna see any cracks. You know, I generally am very safe with most of my chess pieces, but you know, things happen, and I just want to kind of give you guys an idea as far as the durability of different woods in this particular situation. Okay, so the next test I'm gonna go ahead and do is gonna be to drop them onto this. It looks like some kind of a veneer wood or something. It's not terribly hard. It's probably not as hard as tile would be, but we'll go ahead and raise them up to about the height of, say, you know, 29 inches or so, and we'll drop him, and then we'll see what's gonna happen. Okay, so for reference, I'm just gonna keep these pieces all here, and that way we'll you know, we'll kind of take them one at a time. Let's go ahead and take this boxwood piece, and we'll raise it up and drop it and see what we get. Okay, 1. Okay, 2. So what do we notice as far as having dropped a piece 5 times approximately? The inside piece of metal is still in there. It's not shaking or anything like that. I would probably think the very top part right here would start to break, but it seems to be okay. I didn't really notice any severe damages or anything like that. Definitely no cracks or anything that I've noted. Okay, so that was good, about 5 times, and did pretty well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next piece. So in this particular situation, we see that this little part right here, the very base, broke off a little bit, and that's about it. The rest of the piece is okay. Obviously, this isn't great, but we have a little break here. Okay, so that was genuine ebony, and the way that it broke off, it almost sheared off. It didn't crack or anything, but it did shear off the top surface. So there you have it. The inside part is still just as good. Let's go ahead and test the other pieces. When we did the test where we dropped the pieces onto a harder surface, such as the kitchen surface, something that you would expect more or less to be, I mean, other than tile would probably be a little bit harder, but the kitchen surface was fairly hard, and we've seen that for the most part, most of the pieces have done really well. The only piece that has sustained some damage was the genuine ebony. And it could have been, I mean, I've really tried to drop the pieces from the same height and try to do things very systematically, you know, without really having too many deviations. However, you could say, well, you know, it just maybe it landed in a certain way and it caused a... And that's what I did. That's why I dropped the pieces 5 times each, so as to see maybe, you know, on average, to see what kind of damage we would have. The genuine ebony did have a piece break off of the surface. Genuine ebony was a little more dense. That's why it was more likely to be a little more brittle. And so, as we've seen, you know, we had a piece chip off. Would this be the same for every other piece, such as pawns and bishops and queens and kings and knights? Not necessarily. I wish I could have shown you guys more different pieces. And that's another thing too, is that when you watch this video, if you have any comments or any questions, or if you'd like to say, could you do a similar test with maybe bishops or something, I'd be more than glad to do that. and we could do some other tests. If you guys think of anything interesting to test these pieces to, then I would like to hear your comments, your feedback. Maybe we could do some more different tests on these pieces. Okay, so the pieces have been in the freezer for approximately an hour. I would feel like that would be sufficient amount of time for the pieces to show us if there's going to be any damage. The genuine ebony seems to be about the same way as it was before. There's no real reason for me to show you guys these pieces up close, unless of course I see something that wasn't there before. Still, we have the same crack, so we'll go ahead and put this guy here. Yeah, pretty much the same. So the pieces are really cold, but it looks like freezing them didn't really do a whole lot of damage. Like I said, I expected maybe the pieces would crack or anything like that, but that cold temperature was fine for them. Now that would be a different matter if the pieces were frozen and thawed repeatedly for a number of cycles. Maybe then we would see some degree of damage. This piece looks fine. I think they're all pretty much so the same as I put them in. This is the ebonized boxwood. Looks just fine. The genuine, the regular boxwood, fine. No problems, no issues, no cracks anywhere. And then got all these baggies here. Yeah, so no additional damage from placing them in the freezer. Basically, that's the takeaway as far as what I was able to see. Now, maybe if I did leave them in the freezer for like an extended period of time, it's possible that they might have, but I don't necessarily think so, because I dropped the temperature of all these pieces down pretty far, and it seems fine. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next test. Okay, so the next test here, I have taken this little glass bowl, as you can see here, sitting at the window. Sorry, the window's kind of messy, but this this is the kids' room, so they end up using like crayons all the time and coloring all over it and putting stickers, but what have you. What I put inside here is not water, it's distilled white vinegar. What we're going to do is we're going to submerge the pieces about halfway down. Okay, so that's it. So we'll put them in here and we'll let them sit for maybe 10 minutes or so and see what we get. So it's been about 10 minutes or so. Besides the little bubbles forming on the surface of some of the pieces, I haven't really noticed though the watercolor changing or anything like that. Let's go ahead and take the pieces out and see what we have. This distilled vinegar stuff isn't really all that abrasive or anything like that, so it doesn't look like it's having a real impact on any of these pieces so much, that you would be concerned. Even the ebonized boxwood is still keeping its stain on. You would expect that out of all these pieces, the ebonized boxwood would be the first to lose that dark shine, but no, all the pieces are pretty good. So white distilled vinegar, not really a whole lot to see. Okay, the next thing I'm going to use is this ultra powerful nail polish remover, fast acting spa formula, 98% acetone. I'm going to go ahead and use that, and then I'll tell my wife that we need more acetone. Because if we don't have any of this, both my wife and my daughter are gonna kill me. Let's just move it around a little bit. What are we seeing so far? We're seeing that the acetone's starting to turn quite a bit yellow. We'll give that about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll check the other pieces too. So I tried to fit a couple more pieces in that little bowl. We still have a couple that are still outside here, but I'm just gonna have 4 in there, and then I'll replace them in 15 minutes and see what we have. So let's take a look. Let's take a look and see if we see any changes. Here we go. Outer covering or anything like that. Okay, You know, to be honest with you, I kind of expected there to be more excitement in this test because I thought we are gonna like expose some of these pieces for what they truly are. But it seems like not a whole lot of that's happening. To be honest with you, here's the other piece. Even in the ebonized boxwood, it's like I don't know, man. Okay, so what did I expect versus what the reality is? I expected that the acetone was going to strip away most of the, at least the stain that you would have on top. And when it comes down to, let's say this one's the ebonized boxwood, I expected by the time I pulled the piece out in 15 minutes, the area which was submerged under the acetone would end up being completely stripped off of the outside. As you see, it's not the case so much. Maybe if I left it there for like a day, I would probably see more. I saw a little bit of stripping here at the very top, and you can see that underneath it's pretty much boxwood. So the layer isn't super thick, but it seems to be fairly durable. So this probably is the type of stripping that you would expect if you had these pieces and you've played with them for many years. You would start to kind of notice some of this type of stripping, but I don't think it looks that terrible. It gives it kind of a vintage look, you know. As far as ebonized boxwood, we have that outside stain, like the down part of the stain here is what makes it sort of shine. So there is some kind of a stain on the very surface of this piece, and it stripped away the stain a little bit, but what we have left is what the wood looks naturally underneath without any additional hoopla. Genuine ebony hasn't really changed a whole lot. I think that it's still kind of sort of stripped it from its a little bit from, you know, it's not as shiny that much anymore, but it still looks just as dark as it did before. Also stripped off it's a little bit shine before. I think this right here was the fact that the acetone was getting a little dark from all the other stains that were in the same bowl, and as a result it ended up kind of making it a little bit dirty. I think I could take this off. It's not really a big deal. All that we see primarily is the really thin coat that they sort of that polished coat that they put on top has been stripped away, just like with the other pieces. It just got a little bit more matte looking, but nothing bad at all, honestly. Here is another piece. This one really didn't even change a whole lot at all. As you could see, it stayed in acetone. It's just about the same as it was before. So this is the rosewood. Yeah, rosewood didn't change much. And then here is the onion wood, and just like rosewood, sort of stayed very similar. Very similar. Not much change there. Wonderful. So anyways, moving on. My next test is going to be the simulation of what it would be like if we kept leaving our chess pieces in the car on a hot summer day. And for this test, I'm going to go ahead and cover that temperature as much as I can by just, I took my, my regular kitchen oven and I set the temperature down to the lowest that it can go, which is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. It may seem a little bit too much, but honestly, it's not. I used to go to a gym here in town, and they had a wooden sauna. The temperature would go up to about 175, and it was all right, you know. In fact, I've already tested a piece of wood. I have this little thing that you guys probably know about, the little balancing thing, and I already put it into the oven for 170 degrees for 1 hour, and it's made out of wood, and it did fine. No cracks anywhere, nothing. I could have left the testing as is and just told you that if this is fine, we're just going to assume that the chess pieces are going to be fine, but you know, let's just, for the sake of testing things, I'm going to put them in for about an hour. I'll put the timer on, and we'll take them out in 1 hour, and we'll see how the pieces look. So that way, at least we can get an idea, you know, can you leave your chess pieces in the car during the summer, like all the time? Or should you not? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so about an hour has gone by, and a little over an hour actually, and I took the pieces out. No cracks. Maybe 170 degrees Fahrenheit isn't the temperature to really test these pieces at, but you know, I don't think the inside of the car would get past that point. So getting the oven cranked up to like 300, 350, even though that would really put these pieces up to the test, there would be little to no practical application in, you know, taking the temperatures that high, because I mean, where would in real life situations would you expect there to be temperatures of 350 degrees Fahrenheit where you would have to ensure that these pieces would survive? So that's that, and the pieces did good, and there's no cracks, nothing like that. I kind of anticipated that that would be the case, so the pieces did well. These pieces seem to be doing well in all of the tests that we put them through. So maybe if we expect to move each individual piece up to 10 times per game, maybe more. But on average, I would say maybe 10 times, right? And let's say that we play with one particular chess set a total of 1,000 games. Like, what kind of wear would we expect from taking a piece and going like this? What if we're playing some blitz games, maybe a little tougher? I mean, what kind of wear would we expect? Not a whole lot. I mean, maybe the inside where the weight is would start to rattle, but we can test that. So let's take, for example, each one of these pieces, and so we'll go 1, 2, 3, and we'll do that until we reach 100,000 in each one of these pieces. So we got 700,000 hits to do. So go ahead and get comfortable. We're gonna start. No, we're not. But what we have is one of these guys. It's a Theragun that I bought not too long ago for massage. Theragun, really cool for massaging. I'm not trying to advertise it, but 2,400. I guess 2,400 oscillations per second or minute, maybe. Either way, take the inside and we take the piece like this, and we just see what's gonna happen. Nothing. Was this test useful? I mean, I'm not sure. How does a test like this? I applied a lot of pressure to each individual piece and basically held each of the piece by the bottom like this to basically create a lot of low impact, hits. And that way I was trying to replicate what it would be like to basically just be moving the pieces. None of the weights inside of any of these chess pieces feel like they're rattling. So whatever type of wood glue that they used inside of these pieces seems to be doing fine. So overall, I mean, I think that these are very sturdy pieces, as I'm sure your chess pieces are as well. So far, we've tested them for a number of things. We've tested them for cold, for hot, for acetone, for drops. They're doing pretty well, most of the pieces. The only one that has had a little bit of damage is the Genuine Ebony. During one of the drop tests has had a little break off, but the rest of the pieces they're not scratched, they're not dinged, there's no cracks anywhere. And they all feel as if I didn't do anything to them at all. So let's do another test. This next test seems like it's just torture, unnecessary torture, but maybe it's still interesting to some people. What do we have here? For all of my good friends out there, this is a kettlebell. It is 40 pounds. It's not super heavy, but it is what it is. What we're going to do is we're going to test these pieces to see how strong they are. The boxwood is doing fine, no issues. But once again, I mean, guys, these are Rooks. They're really sturdy. If you try to pawn or something, you know, you'd probably have a different result. But probably you're not gonna do something like that with your own pieces. Did fine. No cracks anywhere. Let's go on to the next one. I bet I could use a couple of these Rooks and do push-ups off of them or something. That's pretty good. That's ebonized boxwood. Doing pretty well. 40 pounds. Not terrible. I don't know how practical this particular test is, but here you go. All the Rooks so far seem to be doing pretty well under pressure. I wish I had a bigger kettlebell, but here's Anjan wood, smaller Rook. Everybody's doing well. That's rosewood. Smaller Rooks, thinner Rooks, still doing pretty good. Well, there you go. Genuine ebony. No real idea why we're gonna do this, but you know, let's go ahead and do this test either way. Here's our little chess piece, first one to go in to the microwave. We'll put it in this little bowl and see for 1 minute. We're gonna take it for 1 minute and see what happens. I don't even know what to expect. There's no cracks after a minute in the microwave, which is I didn't know what to expect. What you do notice though is, and that's probably where the smell was coming from, is that the felt underneath got a little burnt. So that's probably where the smell was coming from. But the actual piece, nice and sturdy. It didn't crack or break or anything like that. That is amazing. So that's not a crack right there. That's just the way that the wood is. Honestly, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to put the rest of the pieces through the microwave test, simply because each one of these pieces is creating a little bit of smoke here, and I'm bound to set the fire alarms here in just a second. No practical application. I was just interested to see what would happen to a chess piece if I put it in the microwave. Apparently nothing. I thought it was really, I really was convinced it was just gonna like split or explode or something, but in this particular case, nothing really happened to it. Just the underside, the felt kind of burned a little bit, but that's about it. So pretty interesting. For any Harry Potter fans out there, perhaps you guys could name the last unforgivable curse. A knife and a hammer. See, when I started initially planning this video, I wasn't intending to put these pieces up through the test and then have them be used somewhere else. I wanted to initially get these pieces so that I could show you guys what they look like inside. So all the other tests that we've done are all valuable, but ultimately taking the pieces apart and showing you how the wood looks like inside and how it differs was my initial intention. So with that being said, let's take a quick look, okay? Let's start with ebonized boxwood. Same piece that you guys saw in the beginning. This is what it looks like inside, okay? This is the same type of wood that you would see in a regular boxwood with a certain porosity. Here's the weight in the inside of the piece. Some of the areas where you would expect a piece to break during impact, is all the tests that we've done, probably going to be somewhere at the base, where you see that because that bottom weight occupies so much space, it creates situations where the wood on the bottom is very thin in certain areas, like around here. So during impact, it's probably not going to be this part that's going to shatter. It's probably going to be something at the bottom that's going to break off. So there's the ebonized boxwood. The regular boxwood gave me quite a bit of trouble, so
it kept breaking off, not down the middle, but kind of through the sides. And the inside weight, as you could see, is a little bit different looking. So there's this part, and then there's this little tiny part inside here. But sturdy wood overall, sturdy wood. Once again, bottom portion, the base is probably going to be the weakest point. You know, when I broke these off, I thought I was going to saw them through and it was going to take me forever, but this is the genuine ebony. Split just as easily as the rest of them. If we take a look at the inside part, we see once again quite a bit of weight has been used inside, giving it a lot more. The next piece here is the rosewood, same as the outside. If we flip open and look at the inside, there we go. The wood on the inside looks about the same as it does on the outside. The inside, there's the weight, and then something underneath here. Looks kind of a weird packing, probably some kind of a glue to just keep that weight inside. Next piece you see here is the Anjan wood, and then we can split that and show you guys the inside. This is the Anjan wood that on the pictures did look a lot more orange red than it does in reality. This one you can see has a little bit more weight. So really the biggest difference of the pieces in terms of their weight is how much of the extra weight has been placed inside. This next piece right here is the I believe it's the acacia wood. And let's take a look at the inside. Or it might be the kicker wood. Not really sure. Here's the inside of that. Lastly, we have this beautiful piece, and then the inside looks like this. This is the one that I put in the microwave, by the way. I think if you could see maybe that little darker spot in the center here. So if you guys can see that, could have been the cause of microwaving it. But this is going to be probably the only time where you'll see me take apart any chess pieces, period, because I respect and love chess pieces just like the rest of us, especially when it belongs to a chess set, a bigger chess set. You'll never see me do that on purpose, but these pieces I specifically purchased with that intent so that I could put in a little bit of money and show you guys what these pieces look like on the inside. So that's about it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. You found it interesting or entertaining. Hit that like button if you liked it. Leave some comments below. I'll be sure to get to them. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. And be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you guys in the next video, okay? Bye-bye.